So this just happened. The Department of War got unleashed on Nigeria. President Trump just lit a match under the Pentagon, ordering them to prep for a fast, vicious, and sweet military move in Nigeria over claims of Christian persecution by groups like Boko Haram. This is no idle threat, in my opinion. It's tied to slapping Nigeria with country of particular concern, label cutting aid, and floating drone swarms or jet strikes to wipe out terrorist camps in the north part of that country, because it looks like things have basically gone to hell. We're looking at a mix of cutting-edge gear, potentially even Anduril Fury drones, X-Bats, but definitely F-35Bs, those stealth jets, F-15Es. Those are great for any counterinsurgency type missions. And then MQ-9s, MQ-4s, the backbone of the drone arsenal of the US, could be unleashed on Nigeria at any point. And we'll see what the Pentagon does exactly. But in this video, we're going to be talking about what kind of heavy hitters could be heading that way. There's also the option of naval and marine power in the Gulf of Guinea. We'll get into all this throughout the video. We'll keep it straightforward though. We'll focus on what the strategy could be, what the airframes are, and what likely happens in this scenario. But first we'll break down some of the airframes and we'll see which ones would likely be used and which ones are most effective in operations like this. So first let's start with some hypothetical operations. So Anduril's Fury drone and the X-Bat. The Anduril Fury drone is a 28-foot long unmanned fighter. It's got a 25-foot wingspan and it's built from composites that slash its radar cross-section. Not that the radar cross-section would be incredibly important in Nigeria at this point, but the ability to operate some sort of autonomous drone like this in this situation, in my opinion, would just increase lethality, and it wouldn't put anybody's life at risk. It wouldn't put pilots in the cockpit flying overhead and having to risk their lives. Then there's Shield's AI X-Bat. That's a 26-foot VTOL vertical takeoff and landing drone with a 39-foot wing that basically unfolds and it can hover in its stealth mode. So the ability of this to go out there and do ISR, and that's kind of where I would really see the Anduril Fury drone and the X-Bat doing some sort of intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance on Boko Haram, that gang that is out there slaying Christians. That would be one of the biggest missions for these drones at this point. And I think we're closer to seeing these things operate in a combat environment in an ISR capacity, because in an ISR capacity, you can prove a lot of the different combat systems. So you don't have to have this thing deliver kinetic goods at this point. You could have it up there listening in on gang members, understanding their pattern of life. That's called POL. And that's a big thing when it comes to high value targets, knowing what their pattern of life is, knowing what they might be up to. I think that's one of the primary missions that they could start testing the Anduril Fury and the X-Bat in combat right now. And then this is going to team up with the F-35B. So the F-35B can jump in as the manned STOVL. That's a short takeoff, vertical landing Alpha King Predator of the skies. It's 51 feet long, 35-foot wingspan. It's got titanium edges and it pulls 9 Gs. All I wanted was titanium edges and sharks with freaking laser beams. Thank you, F-35, for bringing me at least one of those things. And rounding it all out is the F-15E Strike Eagle. That's a 63-foot behemoth, 43-foot wingspan, and it's got conformal fuel tanks, so it can add about 750 miles to its range. So you're looking at somewhere between 15 and 2,000 mile range on that F-15E, and it's uniquely suited for the counterinsurgency operation. So if there were JTACs on the ground, they would really be able to integrate and operate with the F-35B, but specifically the F-15E. The F-15E is going to have a weapons systems operator in the back seat, and their sole job in counterinsurgency and close air support missions is to talk directly to the JTAC on the ground, the combat controller, who's ever down there reining in the metal. So talking to the jets up above and then directing where the metal should go, because they likely will have eyes on the hostile forces and eyes on the friendly forces, or there'd be pre-planned targets that they'd be relaying information about, or any threats that they might see in the area. So really it comes down to that teamwork, and having that weapon systems operator in the back is something that gives the ability, the F-15E, to just go out there and hand it to the enemy like no other. And when you're in situations where the enemy is blending in with a local population, like we're seeing here, Boko Haram, basically going into these Christian cities and slaying Christians, you would want a surgical jet with surgical strikes like GBU-39 small diameter bombs from an F-15E that can really hone in and tie in and avoid collateral damage. But you could also team up the F-15E with MQ-9s, MQ-4s, and those combat collaborative aircraft if they're able to get those out into the theater a little bit faster than maybe what they'd planned before. And when you team up a fixed wing asset with a human with the CCA, the combat collaborative aircraft, you really create this situation where people are probably looking at the jet. Look over here, look at the jet. And then out of nowhere, the CCAs sneak in. And those CCAs are uniquely suited to infiltrate hot zones. They sneak in, they get the job done, and they slip out before anyone ever asks for commitment. And when it comes to what keeps these things flying, so when you think of austere environments like Africa, you gotta think about sand, you gotta think about extreme heat. So you have to have very good engines on all these different assets. For the Fury itself, it has a FJ44 turbofan, and that gives that thing 4,000 pounds of thrust in a 4-foot package. So again, all this engine advancement and engine technology advancement with the F-47 is also being done with aircraft like the Anduril Fury and the X-Bat. We've got that next generation adaptive propulsion program for the F-47, but really now we're looking at the ability to shrink things down, make these jet engines a lot smaller, a lot more efficient, and give these the ability to push these CCAs out into a combat environment and be extremely reliable. Also, when it comes to the MQ-4, that has a jet engine on it as well, said to be a very reliable jet engine. It has one of them, so also redundancy isn't there with a lot of these CCAs, so they have to dial in to make sure their engine has the ability to not go, you know what, up. So I don't know if I can say that word, but you know what, up, as they're out there fighting and flying. These single engine platforms have to be able to make it happen on one engine. X-Bat's touting their ultra reliable F-16 derived engine. It's an afterburning jet engine on that as well. That's got 3,000 pounds of fuel, and it climbs 2,000 feet per minute to 50,000 foot ceilings. It can probably climb a lot higher than that, but in its initial launch phase, it doesn't want to burn a ton of fuel. So it's just going up at about, somewhere between 1,500 to 2,000 feet per minute. A nice gentlemanly climb, and then it'll level off. But again, those types of aircraft doing ISR, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance out over Nigeria, taking it to Boko Haram from an intelligence perspective. A lot of these gangs, a lot of these thugs aren't going to know what hit them once we have these CCAs that are up there and they're able to track these thugs like they've never been tracked before. They've kind of operated with impunity, being able to go wherever they want. But think about a swarm of X-Bats up there watching the pattern of life of these different gangs, of these different thugs, basically getting ring camera footage of, hey, yeah, you went to this house and you persecuted these people. Yeah, we're the judge, jury, and the executioner. We're the X-Bat. We saw what you did. We got video footage of it. Now you're done. And then a directed energy weapon just zaps out of the X-Bat. Could you imagine? It'd basically be like a game of that electronic fly swatter for the X-Bat. He'd just be like, okay, yep, just saw what you did. Bzz, just got that fly. Oh, just saw what you did. Bzz, got that fly. And then the F-35B, we got to talk about its redundancy as well, because if it's operating off of marine short field takeoff ships in the area, it's going to have to be extremely reliable because you have a human on board, and the F-35B operates with a Rolls-Royce lift system, and that turbofan delivers 41,000 pounds of thrust with lift fan assist, and it's just a beautiful sight to see. However, here's the catch. It guzzles 1,200 gallons of fuel just for a 450-mile combat radius, but in situations like this, you don't really need supersonic aircraft. You need something that can get up there and loiter, talk to anyone on the ground, talk to the JTAC, and deliver a massive amount of weapons in a short amount of time. And that's where the F-15E might come in. And don't get me wrong, she's not an economical fuel girl. She is not what we would call the Prius of fighter jets, because she's got dual Pratt & Whitney F-100 PW229s that crank out 58,000 pounds of combined afterburner thrust. It just makes me feel tingles in places I never knew I had, but that can stretch that jet to 1,100 nautical miles. It's got anti-jamming systems, and it's got the ability to get bombs on target within 3 meters, which is huge. But then again, you have to get a massive amount of fuel into the area, and you can't stage these things at just any runway. You've got to make sure that you're operating out of a well-suited runway that has some sort of coverage so that they can't be attacked by drones, and then you got to ferry them in, have them hit tankers. So again, these are going to be a lot more logistically costly when it comes to getting assets in the area, rather than just putting up a drone like the MQ-9, MQ-4, or eventually these CCAs that we're talking about. We're probably a little early for those, but hey, I want you guys to have some of the latest and breaking information, because I could see this being one of the main places where the CCAs are started to be used, because at the same time, you don't need them to go kinetic right away. They can team up and let the F-35B go kinetic, they can let the F-15E go kinetic, and then you always got the MQ-9 option. That is the workhorse of Hellfire missiles that could be up there just getting the intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance from those CCAs, from the X-Bat and the Anduril Fury, and then they're the ones that are actually striking the target with a known, proven platform that has the right people in the kill chain, and so they're not doing anything that's going to put them in any type of hot water. Now let's talk about some of the weapons and some of the guidance, and a lot of these weapons will be interchangeable between the different systems, but the Fury itself carries AIM-120 AMRAAMs and then also JDAMs. So JDAMs is what likely would be used in this situation, and those could be anywhere from a 1,000-pound weapon, 500-pound weapon, and those would be going out and doing precision strikes. The X-Bat slings very similar loads, but it is uniquely suited from what I could find for the Hellfire missile, and that laser can hone in up to 5 or more nautical miles away, and it's got a circular error probability, a CEP, of about 5 feet. And the F-35B has internal bays that pack AMRAAMs. Likely Boko Haram is going to be more of the drone operator type thug mentality, so you really don't want to use AMRAAMs on those. That's why you want those F-15Es up there with those drone killing rockets. However, the F-35B would be great at striking pre-planned targets with 2,000-pound bombs. But again, something that's being loaded onto these new drone assets and even on the MQ-4, the MQ-9 is DSMAC, and that stands for Digital Scene Matching Area Correlator. What, you thought I was going to get you out of this episode without a few acronyms? Who do you think I am? But that system, it takes real-time infrared pictures of the ground and it matches them to stored digital images for sub-foot final targeting. So it can be getting in towards the target area, maybe there's some jamming going on, and it can basically compare the target area to 2,000 different images to make sure that it has the right one, which is just next level technology. Likely that'll all be intertwined into the XBAT and into the Fury. Probably some updates as well coming to some of the hardware that's being used in the F-15E and the F-35B. But the XBAT, something that I want to highlight about that is it runs off of Hive Mind, and that gives it self-reroutes or self-rerouting of their entire ingress to a target area or their egress, depending on what's going on. And that Hive Mind is taking in information from F-15Es, F-35Bs, it's taking in that data link information and it's giving it the ability in real time to team up as swarms to break apart and take out any of the targets as needed real time and adapt to what they're seeing from the enemy. Because again, everybody's got a plan until you get punched in the face, like that guy in The Hangover getting smashed in the face. I'm sure he thought he was going to have a great day until Mike Tyson comes in and just gives him a hook to the face. And that's how it is in any type of warfare. You have to be prepared to adapt and adjust. And building that language learning model into the hive mind of that XBAT is just next level technology, and it's rewriting the entire way that warfare is carried out. So what are the main headaches here? Well, it's Boko Haram. I hinted at that a little bit earlier, but ISWAP, which is Islamic State West Africa Province, they're the main headache for this whole situation. They've got 5,000 fighters. They're scattered in Nigeria's northeast. They roll around in 4x4 technical trucks. Think like the Toyota Hilux. That's basically like the Uber X for any terrorists around the world. They've got RPG-29s, which are rocket-propelled grenades, so you can't take them for granted, but they're not extremely capable. But their basic MO is IED, so improved explosive devices with ball bearings for convoys or trucks. And mobility is the name of their game. So they want to be on their trucks. They want to plant IEDs. They want to do the guerrilla warfare type stuff, and they want to terrorize the local population into allowing them to do whatever they do, you know, rape, pillage, take control, have power, gain the spoils. That's their MO, and that's what they're out to do. And they're doing it to Christians right now in certain parts of Nigeria, which is what's sparking this entire thing. It's also said, though, that they may have gotten some SA-18s. Those can hit fixed wing or rotary wing aircraft. They only have about a 3 nautical mile or 5 kilometer range, but again, you can't take them for granted. And then PKM machine guns, those can actually be used for surface to air. They can be used to shoot down helicopters or even fixed wing if they have a really good shot and you get that lucky BB that hits a fixed wing jet. But their yearly toll so far has been about 3,000 attacks. They've hit about 1,000 civilians, with most of those being casualties, but some of them being maimed and injured as well. They've also got drones, so they're said to be operating some low-level technical drones, maybe seeing what was done in the Ukraine situation going up against Russia. This has made pretty much every terrorist group around the world start to operate some of these FPV drones. So let's talk about some hypothetical scenarios here. So scenario 1 rolls out at the Chad line. Reaper drones cue in a Fury and XBAT pair on a Boko Haram arms run. 8 technicals are loaded down with RPGs, and they're snaking about 150 miles through rigorous canyons towards a village. XBAT launches out using its VTOL, and it hovers silently for overwatch. The XBAT snaps infrared pictures and pumps that information to MQ-9s and F-35Bs in the area. F-35Bs launch off of an amphibious ship and make their way in to receive the information. They're the first to reach out and target this convoy. They target the first and the last member of the convoy, pinning the convoy into a tight canyon, and then the MQ-9 rolls in with Hellfires and finishes the job. This is how these systems can team up to make this happen, and Boko Haram won't even know what's coming. So let's talk about operation number 2. So intelligence from an MQ-4 pins high-level operatives in bunkers 250 miles inland inside of Nigeria. F-15E Strike Eagles launch from Djibouti. Their engines propel them at a supersonic speed towards the target area. Fury drones are in the area as well. They team up with the F-15Es, and they're basically the bomb trucks for those F-15Es. The Wizzo in the back of the F-15E cues in the Fury drones. 4 Fury drones, each releasing 1,000-pound JDAMs onto the bunker site. And then boom, everything is destroyed. Expats in the area are there to do BDA, which is battle damage assessment, and look for any squirters, anyone who might have survived that attack. The F-15Es on their way out of the target area are ambushed by PKMs. Those machine guns are blazing from hilltops, as well as RPGs that aren't well guided, but they're still lighting up the sky, and the Strike Eagle is diving through the canyons to try to avoid these threats. So there you have it, guys, from maybe future operations going up against Boko Haram to what we could see here in the next few days. F-15Es, F-35Bs, MQ-9s, Fury drones, expats, these can all team up to create a hive mind of their own. You see what I did there? Shield AI's hive mind would be one of the leaders in this operation, and they might become one of the leaders moving forward in a lot of these different operations to connect everybody, maybe as the future version of Link 16. What do you think of these drones teaming up with fixed wing assets and taking it to Boko Haram in a way that basically just cuts the head off the snake over and over and over again and protects the Christians that are being slaughtered in these areas? Let me know what you think in the comments below. Would love to hear what you think. And then as always, please go ahead and watch this video right here. When you watch this video right here, it helps the channel grow exponentially, and I would greatly appreciate it. So I'll see you on this video right here. This is Ryan, also known as Max Afterburner, signing off.